Florida, I do the industrial system technology, and this is Christina Weeks. She does the biotechnology stuff for us, and we both utilize this clean room. So what you're going to demonstrate today is we're going to get you to gown up and go into the clean room. So I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to let her talk, but I always talk too much, and we just barely made it on time the last group. There's a little placard over here that shows you how to put the gowns on, and there's booties, gloves, masks, hair nets. And I don't know if anybody's ever been associated with that, but we're looking at production. I do certificates in biomaintenance. You know, that's how Christy got me involved. You know, went to Thermo Fisher and they said, had a big plate glass. I said, who fixes that stuff? And the vice president, I think it was Catalytica then, he goes, they do. I said, they're trained that they go in there mechanical, electrical, hydraulics, pneumatics? He goes, no. I said, well, if something goes bad and severe enough, it goes into a declassification, which I mean, they make the clean room dirty. Go in there, fix it, come out, you got to clean it 3 times. That's called validation to even get it back where it needs to be. It's all about money, right? You know, and that's, so she's going to talk to you about what she knows and the particle counters, and I'm going to have you gown up. And when she gets done talking, I'm going to just bring you around to the other side, the viewing windows, and show you where you're going to be and where you're going to utilize her particle counters. What you're doing is these counters, they got a little air pump and it sucks the air in, and we set it for 5.5 particles per million, and that little optical sensor is counting every one of those. It's amazing. This here, the dirty room. She'll talk more about it because she told me about breathing in stuff, and I'm like, now I'm stuck on that, breathing in bacteria. But I'm going to let her talk to you more about her stuff, and then we'll gown up.
Okay. Yeah, so when we think about medications, we mostly probably think about like taking a pill, right? Like taking ibuprofen or something. And it really doesn't matter if what environment. I mean, obviously, you want it to be clean environment, but it doesn't have to be sterile environment that it's manufactured in, because you know, every time you swallow, when you swallow your own spit, you're swallowing millions of bacteria. Like, it's no big deal. There's nothing sterile about our, you know, right. Head to toe. And that's true for our skin. Like, there's a lot of our body that is very contaminated. And in fact, for every 1 human cell you have, there's 10 bacteria cells. You are 10 times more bacteria than you are human. So, you know, so our body is used to bacteria being in certain places, but there are certainly certain parts of our body that do not contain bacteria, and our immune system has been developed to have a very loud alarm system for when bacteria is detected in those spaces. And so anything that's injected, or like either IV, like directly into the bloodstream, or even like a shot, you know, like a vaccine, if there is certain parts of bacteria, not even like full live bacteria, it could be dead bacteria, it could be bacteria that's like broken up into little pieces, but if even little parts of bacteria end up in those environments, your immune system reacts very violently. I always tell students it's kind of like if someone walked into the White House with what looked like a bomb strapped to their chest. You know, it would be no time before the Secret Service was on them. It wouldn't matter if it was plastic and not real, you know. So even though this bacteria parts aren't harmful to our body reacts to it the same. And you can very quickly go into shock and die. So that's why these drugs have to be manufactured in a sterile environment, because the one thing we haven't been able to remove from the manufacturing process is people. So we can sterilize the equipment, we can sterilize the room, we can create a sterile environment with HEPA filters, but as soon as a person walks in that room, it's no longer sterile, because, like I said, we're 10 to 1 bacteria. So we try to limit the amount of bacteria that we're contaminating the space with by gowning up, by wearing gloves, by using, you know, alcohol, by the ways in which we move in the room. Like, the more you move around, the more skin cells you're going to release. So you learn how to don't move unless you absolutely have to. I mean, if you walk through a Thermo Fisher sterile area and you see people working there, they're usually kind of standing around like this. They're statues. you know, until they have to interact with the equipment, and then they will. But they're very meticulous about the way they move. You know, if they're sitting on like a steel stool. It's not some nice padded seat, because when you sit down on a padding, what happens? A bunch of air gets pushed out, right? So so they learn how to move and how to interact in this sterile environment. There's no talking, because that's going to just release all kinds of bacteria. We learned that, right, through the pandemic, how much bacteria germs we spew out every time we speak. So so, you know, there's just a whole lot of that. But even with all those things in place, we still have to monitor the environment to ensure that we're not contaminating the space too much. And so we use these air particle counters just to count the number of particles in the air. And we assume that if there's particles in the air, there's bacteria on those particles. Because like I said, the only particles that are going to end up in that clean room are the ones that we bring in with us, which are going to be mostly like skin cells and stuff. And where there's skin cells, there's bacteria. This will count. This one is, you can get them for smaller sizes, but this one counts 0.5 microns per cubic foot. How many particles that are a size of 0.5 microns. So to give you an idea of what a micron is, you know, a meter, right? It's about a meter, right? Like a meter stick. Divide that by 1 million, and that's 1 micron. So we're talking about half that. So we're talking about molecular size, you know, particles that that would be very difficult. I mean, you could see them with the naked eye, but it would be very difficult. So actually, no, you wouldn't be able to see them with the naked eye. But so anyway, it pulls the air and sucks it through the particle counter, and then it'll count any particles that have that diameter. And our goal is to not have more than 100 per cubic foot in a class, what we call a Class A clean room. Now, the two anti-rooms are about 10,000 particles per cubic foot, so they're a little bit clean. This room here, we just counted it a few minutes ago, and it was about 60,000. You know, I've seen it go up to like 100,000.
Close the door. It'll get
yeah,
worse.
more people you have in here.
Breathing.
Stuff. But I'll go ahead and start this now.
While she's starting, I'll tell you, I teach my students, I hope a gallon bag of potato flakes that's half full. I said, this is what's flaked off your epidermis, your skin, in 1 year. So it's like every second. Your house, dust. You know, I hate cleaning dust, but I look around and see me. You know, I need to do better, right? You know, my dog, I got a little French bulldog, I blame her. I'm like, that's you.
Yeah, so
that ain't me, you know.
It's hovering around 38,000. You can always make it go a little higher if you kind of
breathe on
rub
it.
your hands, like talk over it.
It'll go skyrocketing.
You know, it'll start, so now it's jumping up to 41. If I keep talking over it, it's
my
up to
students
42.
get in there and I hear them talking. I'm like,
you know, I always tell students to do that. Sometimes I have students take their shoes and like rub their hands on their shoes and stuff. I got it up to 60,000 earlier.
I make them come out, take everything off, do it again. And these things hold the heat in. These Tyvek suits, they don't allow nothing out. That's what they're designed to do. We don't want to contaminate the area. So what I'll do in a minute, I'm going to show you, take you over there, show you the viewing rooms of where you're going to be, and then we'll come back and we'll gown up. Now, if you're not comfortable about gowning up, I'm fine with that. You know, some people in the last group didn't want to. Mask, hair nets, you know, the full gown. I think they gave you safety glasses. Make sure you have your safety glasses on. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go next door real quick, and I'll bring him back over here. Because we just barely made it, because she's got some stuff she needs to show you over in her other room.